I feel like so nervous.
I'm not nervous. Are you nervous?
Hell yeah, I'm nervous.
It's a good type of nervous. It's like
It's excitement.
Yeah. Exciting
Long time
nervous.
coming.
Okay, one of you guys can start talking first.
Well, we can't do that.
Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of Lionz Den. We're excited to get this going. It's been a kind of while talking about it. We should probably start with where it all came from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So first, probably introduce each other. My name's Eddy.
I'm Daryl.
I'm Brad.
I'm Alex.
This is not the Mickey Mouse Club.
Absolutely not.
No.
But so Lionz Den came from probably about, it's been about 2 years ago. Had an idea, I wanted to do it. The idea at that time was doing it solo. And started writing the book. Got a little lost in that. And then, Daryl, how long has your book been done now?
My book has been finished for not quite a year yet, but I'm coming up on a year now.
Okay.
So at the time of us making this, I'm coming
So
on
kind
a
of
year.
when we all connected, he was in the process of writing that.
Right.
And so we were kind of going back and forth on it a little bit. I was getting near the end. It was a little bit before Christmas. And I forgot how we started talking about Daniel and the Lionz Den.
I remember it was one of the chapters that you were working on towards the end of your book. And you really get into the meat and potatoes of, you know, what your book is about. And you kind of had like I don't want to say a revelation, but just another understanding of Daniel and the Lionz Den. And we talked about it at work.
Yeah, so Daniel Lionz Den is, I think it touches most people. You know, the guy survives being overnight with a bunch of man-eating lions.
Yep.
The way I've always taken it was faith spared him. You know, through Daniel's faith, the lion spared his life.
Right.
And that's kind of what Daryl was talking about. We were having a conversation about it. And it wasn't even so much during the conversation. It was a little bit after. I think I was on my way home. And it just kind of had like an epiphany about it where I was like, wait, did they spare him or did they see him as an equal? Did he become part of the den? And when I had that experience, I think I ordered the plate to my car. I sent you guys the...
Yeah, it was like 3 days after that.
I do, yeah.
It was pretty
that.
soon after.
Yeah.
I just kind of knew at that point in time, and we've all had those conversations, but especially with talking to Daryl that day, it just really dawned on me, wait a second, this is be a way more effective doing as a group because the strength is really within the pride.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it gave a much different perspective of what faith did. You know, instead of being subservient to him, it was every bit the equal.
Right.
And I think that's what this kind of came from.
Yeah, and when you came back and you kind of broke it down in that way, I started to look at it like that, and it made sense to me too. So, yeah, and I hadn't looked at it like that prior to that.
Just in general, the strength in numbers, Three Musketeers, everybody in it together.
Right.
It really does make sense. It is kind of one of those epiphany things of here's a story you've heard told this way time and time again, and your instant takeaway is this, and it's like, maybe it's truly this. He became part of the den.
Yeah. I remember when I first started the discussion with you about the Lionz Den, I think it was that day that you and Daryl had discussed it, and you called me on the way home, and we were talking about, the story of Daniel and the lions, and you were like, so what's your take on it, man? And I said what you said. So it's they realized that he had the faith, and, well, what do you think about this? Did you ever consider it being looked at as, I'm a part of the pride? They recognized him as an equal. And it didn't dawn on me until you said that's exactly what it was. And the more I thought about it, it's perfect for what we're doing here because everything you go through in life, it's your perception of how you want to see it. So are you getting that reality from something other some other people have said to you and you believe it, like the Wikipedia of life, it's out there, so it's got to be true. I think it embodies this podcast because this is what it's all about. So when you're going through life, are you challenging every idea, not other people, but are you challenging every idea, including with yourself, to see exactly what it is that's actually happening? And that's when it struck for me that I was like, that's it. I mean, we're the Lionz Den. I mean, it's looking at the big picture, walking through life, all the things we're going through, and really seeing it for what it is.
For sure. And Again, I can't really remember, like Daryl said, we were talking about the different part with the chapter and something about it just kind of clicked after. And it just kind of gave me a perspective that I never really had looked at it before. Right. And in fact, I changed the title of the book that night and was kind of laughing about Daryl with it. It was like the third title change. And we met, it was about a month ago, kind of started talking about it. Again, the idea was get the book out there, get some traction with that, and then kind of put this out. Right. And when we met that day, that was 4 or 5 hours?
Yeah, we talked for 5.5 hours.
Easy 5.5 hours.
Easy 5.5 hours.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we all walked away from it where, it was very apparent that this was the right way of doing it as a group, doing it as a pride. I mean, for you guys, what are you kind of hoping for this to become?
I think personally, I know through even our recent conversations, but long-term conversations you and I have had, there's almost like the way you looked at the story of Daniel. There's multiple ways to look at your story in life and how you've carved your path and where you're at. And I've definitely been through a lot, and having a different perspective, and then having somebody that can listen, that can talk to you, that can help you realize your path through faith, to realize your path through life, and just as simple as when you're down and out, have an area that people can come to, whether it be a social media page or email or a YouTube channel or podcast, where they may get something from our experiences. We're 4 completely different people, but have a lot in common and have a similar background that I think most people today have. So I think there's a lot of relatability there. And I think people are going to get a lot of, the hope is that they're going to get a lot of info from this that they can take to help them maybe not go through what we went through, or realize when they're going through it, there's people that have gone through it. Yeah. They've made it out the other side. I can relate to these guys. If they can do it, I can do it. That kind of thing.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's, obviously a lot of that is true for me too. I hope people get out of this what I get out of talking to you guys. So a place where you can be open, a place you can be honest, talk about things without feeling like there's a stereotype attached to it. And I really hope people see this and think that, it's okay to just be yourself. Don't try to be something you're not. Use our experiences, because at the end of the day, even all the stuff that we've gone through to come out on the other side, we're still 4 regular dudes. So it's not like any of us are anything special. We're not anybody that's a somebody. And I hope that people are able to see that you don't have to be a professional athlete to find true happiness. You don't have to be famous to be extremely happy. You don't have to be extremely wealthy to find that. You have to find what makes you happy, and you have to stick to it. That first night we met, we talked for 5 hours, and I told you all guys that night, man, this is like a therapy session for me.
It was.
I feel like I can talk to you guys openly, and it's, when I leave talking to you guys, I feel happier. I feel a lot more relieved about things, a lot less stressed. And, I hope people are able to take away from that what we're doing. I hope it helps them.
Yeah. I mean, it's along the same lines of what both Brad and Alex just said. I wanted to be somewhere where people can tune in, hear some experiences and stories that they can either relate to or learn from, and kind of just let them know that everybody deals with things, and we're very good, the 4 of us, at sharing our experiences. And one of the things that I think makes our conversations flow so well is that we aren't shy from talking about the vast majority of things that we dealt with. So I think when you do that and people hear it, it helps them, whether they say it helps them or not.
Right.
Hearing somebody else deal with something that you may have dealt with or maybe dealing with at the time will always help you kind of get through it. So if my experiences can help somebody else, I would love to put them out. And I mean, I enjoy our conversation, so it's therapy for myself, just like Alex just said.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's kind of where we knew it would be useful, because the text messages after that meeting were all like, I feel good, and hey, it was a great conversation.
Do this again next week.
It was kind of therapeutic for all of us.
Yeah.
So we figured, hey, if it's working for us, it could definitely be working for other people that were out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that there's not a lot of, especially with the way things are going now in society and the world, there's not a lot of genuine conversation, and there's not a lot of back and forth. It's more people just saying how they feel, don't really care what anybody else has to say. So I think it's good to kind of see that exchange between people. And we all have different backgrounds, but, we all also have things in common.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing. We live in a world where there's so much stuff that's not true out there. That's manipulated. That's people saying what they read or what they heard before they find out if it's true. And I think this is something that's real for people, so I kind of hope people latch on to the fact that this is very genuine. It's very real. And like you said, see people sit down and have a conversation again.
We're okay with being vulnerable.
Yeah.
I think there's a large group of society that isn't. You're kind of, the way things are, you hide all that, you force it all down.
Yeah.
And we're okay with talking about it. And hopefully people see that and they start talking, because really communication is the key. So whatever you're going through, if you can either find somebody to talk to, or if your situation is with somebody else, you can, through conversation, through being vulnerable, being okay with being vulnerable. We're going to talk about fear and what fear does. So there's a lot of info that we have and a lot of stuff we've gone through that we've all kind of learned how to cope with life. It's that experience that it'll be great to share with people.
Yeah.
And again, I think going to the Lionz Den is having that pride of people where, you feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
You have confidence that you could have those conversations with each other and kind of get that sincere, honest exchange with not all the judgment that sometimes comes with it, especially with men, the machismo and holding things back, not being honest about stuff.
Right.
And that's really, like I said, that's where for me it dawned on me that it was so important to do it as a group.
Yeah.
That the real strength in the Lionz Den is in the pride.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Having each other.
And it's recognizing that you're not alone. The experiences that you go through, that you feel like you're isolated, a lot of the times if you reach out or you talk to people, you find that there's a lot more similarities between the two of you. And even though you may not go through the exact same experience with each other, you go through a lot of the same emotions, a lot of feelings. And I just think we live in a world where if you don't know somebody, it's kind of taught not to go up to that person, right? You have to be extremely approachable looking. And I mean, all four of us are tattooed, we're obviously in a motorcycle world. We love riding. We love doing things outdoors. We're not necessarily the most approachable people when you're walking down the street, which is sad, that it's that way. Because when you talk to us being very vulnerable people, we're very open to a lot of things, so I think it's just recognizing you're not alone. Those things that you've gone through, there's people out there actually probably more than probably the person standing next to you that's been through a similar situation. It's just, we got to get back to being open with people, I mean,
for sure.
Realizing everybody's on the same playing field and we're all just people.
And I think that's where that revelation with Daniel of through faith, understanding that that's where the strength isn't having to be spared by anybody. It's being that lion, being that leader, being that person, at the forefront. They don't have to, kowtow to anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Walk with a pride that fits you.
Absolutely.
You don't have to just be a part of a pride to be able to be a part of one. If you got to walk alone for a while till you find the one you fit in with, don't be afraid to do that.
And also understanding that everybody's got a role. I mean, everybody in life has something to offer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes, like you said earlier, being an actor, movie star, musician, you know, sometimes I want to, that's what I wish I could do. You know, a lot of times we're wanting for other people's lives and kind of missing the fact that we all have something to offer.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
You see that a lot, especially nowadays too. A lot of people desire what they see and don't really focus on what they have, you know.
Right.
So
Social media, it's by design
That's-
almost.
yeah, that
you
is.
know?
Absolutely.
It's bragging rights, you know, and really it's, are you truly happy? It's a great picture, but are you happy? And come to find out, you talk to people, a lot of people aren't.
no, it's highly fictitious. It's,
Yeah. Exactly. So,
Yeah. And I mean, it could definitely be very disingenuous.
Mhm.
And kind of to that point, you know, I think that's kind of what we've all experienced in our own lives is that person that seems to have it all together, got it figured out, their life is great. You know, there's a lot going on beyond what we see.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of people aren't being honest about that.
Right.
I even think those people hide behind that image they've created. It's the living a lie.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
and it keeps, that snowball keeps rolling and getting bigger and bigger. The more lies you tell, the more posts you make and whatever. And then it becomes the point where they're too far gone. They can't be vulnerable. They can't talk to their friends. They can't talk to their family or whatever. So, you know, talk to us. We'll listen.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter
Well,
who
and
you
I
are.
think that's what was so important. And again, it dawned on me that day in talking to Daryl, talking to you and I, Brad and I talked about it about 3 days later that, you know, we're blessed in the fact that we have those outlets. We have each other. We have, you know, the people that we could talk to about it. You know, I'm not so sure that everybody has that avenue to go. And because a lot of times and we do it all the times, a simple conversation becomes 20 minutes, an hour, 3 hours, 4 hours. Because when you have good dialogue with somebody, it's an exchange of ideas.
Right.
And
it is.
those ideas kind of grow and grow. The more you're talking, the more you're going through everything. And we're definitely blessed to have that. And
Yeah.
I think that's what we want to share with everybody.
Right.
Yeah. A commonality that we all share is that we all are able to be vulnerable. So we'll tell our experiences, stories, and things that happen to us, but we all listen too. So a lot of times, if you think about it, I know in our experiences at work and stuff, people tend to open up to us about stuff because it's not so much stuff being directed at them. We'll listen first, and then usually after they're done expressing whatever it is they're expressing, I'll have questions or you'll have questions
Right.
about what they just told us. So it feels very unjudged, but they can tell that you kind of recorded what they were saying. And that feels good to people, you know, especially if they've been holding on to stuff for years or, you know, however long,
Yeah.
you know, because it's good to get that stuff out. People need an outlet. And usually the outlet is just being heard.
Yeah. And I think our hope is definitely this to be a place where people can share that. You know, hopefully people will share their ideas, thoughts in the comment section. This is both a YouTube and a podcast. So hopefully people share and, hey, this is what we'd like to hear about, or this is some of the things I'm having a hard time talking to people about. We also have our email address. The email is Lionz Den. That's with a Z, LIONZ Den 146@gmail.com. So feel free to shoot something through if you don't feel comfortable putting it in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be talking about a lot of different stuff. These conversations at the table will definitely be the foundation of what Lionz Den is. But I mean, we do a lot of different stuff. I mean, we'll be out camping, we'll be outdoors, we'll be doing different stuff. This whole thing is really about enriching life.
Yeah.
You know, how do we make life isn't easy all the time. You know, sometimes it's really hard. So what can we do to make life a little easier? And there's a lot of different ways of doing that. I mean, for us, faith is definitely the foundation of that, but that's not something that, you know, I'm a Jesus freak, love him. I'm not all day thinking of Jesus. I wish I could be, but I'm not.
Yeah,
So
right.
A lot less.
Well,
lot
we're
less
all
regrets.
faith-driven people, but our take on faith is vastly different.
For
Mine
sure.
versus yours, and
Yeah.
so that comes out in our conversations, and you know the foundation's there, but the path may be slightly askew. So what works for you may work for a lot of people, or what works for me may work for a lot of people. It's building that community of faith and just, trying to help people find that happiness. If we build it, with the help, people come in, they talk, this grows, and it grows immensely. And then you have a community, and, then it becomes this force, and it maybe could change a lot of things for a lot of people, and this world could use that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things we're striving for, right? Is excuse me, the Lionz Den was created because we all want to make an impact. We have a desire to leave whatever it is. I mean, the world seems a bit dramatic, but our circle, the people that we talk to, our pride as it develops, we want to leave it in a better place than we found it. We want to be able to use this platform as something that we can make a difference. And I think we all agreed that by sharing the things we went through, that's how we start. We'd obviously love to get to a point where we're able to give back, have charities that are going through, I know you and I have talked, we've all talked, eventually get to a point where we have soup kitchens, love to have a church going. But I think we all decided that this was really a good opportunity for us to start. I think for me, I've told you this many times on the phone, and I look at what legacy do I want to leave behind me? I want to make a difference. When I'm gone, I want somebody to be able to say, this helped me. Not necessarily me and specifically, but maybe something I did, something I said, an action that I took, maybe it left something better than I found it. And especially being a father now, that's something I strive for on a daily basis, is trying to find a way to make situations better. Not saying it has to be better than maybe I went through, but just make things better for obviously for my daughter, my wife, but for the people that I'm surrounded by,
For sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, Eddy said, like one of our big focuses is enriching lives. And when you said that, I was thinking that that's actually something that I want to give back to people. Like when anybody has any kind of interaction with me, when they walk away from it, I would hope that it would be something that enriched their life in some point. It doesn't have to be like anything vast or huge,
right.
But something good came from whatever it was.
No, and I think that's what's so important is that we didn't all learn everything the easy way.
No.
A lot of us.
Well, and we're far from perfect, right?
For sure. And I mean, we learn things the hard way. So, you hope when you do that, you kind of spilt that blood to make the road a little easier for somebody else. Yeah. And that's really what this is about, is what our experiences were, the hard knocks that we learned. And we've all been through that. Many of us have been lucky where somebody warned us and you still got to do it. You still got to go through it. But hopefully this gives that idea that you're not alone and that there are other people that have been through it. There are other people that are thinking about it, feeling it. You're not an island out there.
Well, and you hit it on the head. We could tell you till we're blue in the face, I went through this and this is what I struggled with. I mean, chances are you're still going to do it. Mm-hmm. I think what this brings to the table for a lot of people is after you do it, we're not going to tell you we told you so. Actually, more so, you're going to realize that you have somebody to fall back on. Mm-hmm. When you hear about the things that we went through and you still experience it, the hope with this is because we're not here to preach to you. We're not here to preach to anybody. We're here to work through this for ourselves, for other people. So when you go through it, and if you fail, if you go through the same struggles we went through, that there's at least a pride of 4 people that understand it. And even though you did it, we're still here, because
for sure
we all have been through stuff. We're far from perfect, just because we have faith does not mean that I'm a perfect human being in any sense of the word. But it means I'm trying, right? It means I'm trying to navigate through it. And this is how we do it.
Yeah, I've never needed anybody to tell me, I told you so.
Yeah.
I knew, like when it happened, I was like, yeah, they told me. I remember them, they mentioned something like that. Yep. So.
I mean, really, when it comes down to it, I mean, this is definitely faith driven, but there's a lot of elements to that faith. And there's a long road to that faith, kind of what Daryl was just talking about. Sometimes it's been really prevalent. Other times it's been, way in the background. You know, I could say for myself personally, and as I've gotten older, I've gotten a lot better with it. But when things go real well, you're not always, you know, hey, thank you, God, things are great. You know, it's usually when things are crappy.
Yep.
Where you're like, hey, where are you, man?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Right.
Which is really messed up. But I'll say in my defense, and most people that I talk to, I mean, that seems to be a lot of people's case.
It's not as calm as, hey man, where are you? It's usually like, the hell?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, really? You know?
Right.
All right. So.
Yeah, definitely. Like, where are you? And I think that that's what's important for people to hear. You know, I think especially now there's just so much white noise out there about what faith is, which we'll certainly talk about in upcoming episodes. But this is what God is. This is what you need to do. This is what it's all about. You know, there's all these experts out there telling you what it is. And it doesn't work for most people. It doesn't work for a lot of people.
Yeah.
No, I hate those closed-ended interpretations of what faith is and stuff, because it's too many versions of how you can come across your faith, and with all the people in the world, you can't really limit something like faith, you know. So the way we all came into our faiths are different, and that's just for people. So when you try to imagine everybody, you know, it's got to be different. It's endless amounts of ways that you can reach your faith to become faithful and live your best life and enrich your life and others around you.
And I think that's really key, is living your best life.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that stems from experiences and when you experienced them. So what I mean is, you know, for example, myself, and I won't go too far into depth in this one, you know, right now, but young age, lost a cousin who was just an I mean, when you say somebody's an angel, right, as a person, she, you know, embodied that. She was great to everybody. She was striving to be a teacher, an educator, just everything she did. She was a performer. She danced, she acted. And I was so young, right? And when you lose somebody at a young age, one, you're angry. Two, you have questions, and it's hard to get the answer to those questions, right? So for me, when I stepped out of faith for a while, it was, well, how does somebody like that end up at 18 years old passing away at a freak accident that we still really don't know exactly what happened? And that's something that makes you fall out, you know, and it's something that if you don't have that guidance, that mentor to show you the way, and I'm not saying be able to explain to you why it happened, but help you work through that. It's very easy to see why people lose that faith. And then that gets exacerbated when we live in a world where communication isn't something people do unless it's through a text message or an email. So if a lot of people don't have that outlet to really work through that, you know, I know for me in my personal experience, when I went through that, what I saw, what it did to my family in the sense of how hard it was for my aunt, for my cousins that were obviously brother and sister, you kind of ask questions of how can something like this happen, right? And I think when you go through things in life, depending on when it happens to you, really obviously shapes how you end up, right? And it's
for sure.
Do you revisit that? Do you reflect on that? You know, I think that has a lot to do with it.
No, and I think you hit it on the head. A lot of people, I mean, that's where their faith gets shattered, is something really unexplainable happens, something that just kind of shakes your foundation makes you really question, is there a God? And if there is a God, how does this happen? And it's not fair. It's not right. And it's easy to get down that rabbit hole.
Absolutely.
I mean, it gets real dark real quick.
No doubt.
And I know we've all been there.
Yes.
Several times.
Yeah. It's not a one-time occurrence.
Yeah.
No.
And again, I think that's what people really need to hear. Because I think a lot of times when you encounter somebody who is religious, spiritual, faithful, you know, it comes across like they got their shit together and they've never really had those moments. And you're a freak if you did, because if you just believed in God, everything would be okay. And, you know, there's somebody that's there that comes across very disingenuous.
Absolutely.
We all want to believe that. Who wouldn't want to believe that?
Right.
I mean, we all would love to have that concrete faith of something terrible happens and, oh, hey, God's got me, the let God drive type of thing. It's easy to say that when things are pretty good.
Yeah.
When they're starting to go off the road, it's hard to kind of gather yourself and come back to that.
Yeah, usually the people that say that are third party. So it's like the person that's going through something, they usually have somebody telling them that's the way that they should be handling it. God's going to take care because they're not the person dealing with it at the time. So it's always easier to put that out in third person. It's extremely difficult to try to actually do that when you're the first person, when you're in that whatever situation it is. And you want to put God first and let him take the wheel. But at the time, you're dealing with whatever it is you're dealing with. So
sure.
That's a very large struggle.
Well, and that's where the Lionz Den comes in. We've all probably been through whatever somebody's going through. There's a good chance one of us has been through it. When you're losing that faith, and instead of coming at you of, you need to do this or do that, that's not what this is about. It's about being that pride, coming together, talking through it, working through it. Life is going to throw you curveballs. It will continue to do that. As time goes on, as you learn communication, as things we've learned, having this group allows those curveballs to be less, and they don't affect me like they used to. You learn, these skills that how to deal with them, how to deal with life being what it is, and through faith and through friendship and through communication, it makes life so much better when those things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I definitely think knowing that there's other people, we've all been in that position, and we'll certainly get more detail as the episodes go on, but where you kind of feel like you're the only person in the world who's ever experienced this, and this has never happened to anybody else. And God, why are you singling me out and screwing me over so bad? What did I ever do to deserve this? It's real when you feel that way.
Yeah.
I mean, we laugh about it because we've all been there, and we're like, you genuinely feel like
It wasn't funny at the time.
No, there was no laughter.
I mean, it's brutal, and you can really get lost in that. And I know we've all been down some dark tunnels with that. I mean, I've been suicidal. I've been to a point where I just didn't want to be here anymore. Enough was enough. And that's really when a lot of people look at that, how could you ever feel that way? And it's never that bad. You really have a hard time understanding that you feel so alone in those moments. And, looking back on it, what's terrible about it, and why I would hope through listening to this or talking to anyone else that when you feel that way, I had a lot of people around me that love me. I mean, you two were there during it.
Yep.
Daryl I hadn't met yet, but, there was a lot of people that I know love me, that genuinely care about me, but you're oblivious to that, because in your mind, it's that one thing that has to be right to kind of get you through it. And if it's not, you're kind of oblivious to everything else that's around you, which it's a terrible train of thought to be in, but, it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny, not funny, but now that we're talking about it, when you're going through anything and people tell you, listen, man, you're going to come out the other side of it. I've been through this. Some people I've been through this exact same situation. In your mind, no, you haven't. It's different. It's different.
Definitely.
You don't know this person that I was in. Yes, I do. I do know that person, man. Just let me help you. Open up. I mean, and I think as people, we have to recognize that when you're going through that, which it's almost impossible to do when you're going through something like that, that you got to open yourself up. You got to look inward. You got to see what's actually going on, what actually is bothering me. I keep saying that I'm upset about this, or that, I feel alone because of this. But the reality of the matter typically is that you feel alone because you're isolating yourself. Are you opening yourself up, which isn't easy to do. I'm not saying it's something you can just walk outside and walk up to you, Brad, if you're on a job site and, hey, bro, you look like a pretty good dude. Can I talk to you about something? It's not easy to do, but anything in life isn't. I mean, anything that's worth living for, which sounds super cliche, but anything that's worth living for isn't easy. it's not easy. You got to put the work in order to enjoy those benefits. And it's the same thing when you're going through emotions. You got to challenge yourself. You got to challenge yourself to get out of it. I know for me, unfortunately for you, you were there when I bought my house. You were there when I was going through marriage, going through becoming a father. I mean, so you got to see that firsthand, kind of the roller coaster ride that I went through. And all those are great things, right? Bought a house, married my wife, had a baby, became a father. All of them are fantastic. None of them were easy. None of them were easy.
Right.
One of the things we talked about a while back was that, it's almost like the Instagram thing where you see that story of I started here and now I'm here, Lionz Den, really, we want to talk about the middle.
Yeah.
Because that's where the work is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the hard part. So our goal is to talk you through that middle. We've all been through that middle. So, let's work on it together. And there's like you said, there's the ebb and flow, and there's going to be rises and falls, and you're going to do stuff that maybe you shouldn't, you shouldn't. And it's going to set you back.
Yep.
But it's all right. We'll talk about it some more, and then you eventually get to that place. So the middle is where the work is, and that's really where the foundation of what we're doing lies, is in the middle.
Yeah, that's always the hardest part is the middle. I mean, even coming from right now, I'm thinking of it in a writing standpoint, and I know Eddy can probably attest to this too. The middle is, so I know, as far as like with my book, I knew the beginning and the end, right? When I started writing it, how I was going to explain or tell the middle part of the story was probably the hardest part, because you want to make sure everything lines up with the beginning and the end, which I already know how those things go. And not to say that those are easy, but for me, the hardest part was putting the meat and potatoes in the middle and making sure it connected with both the beginning and the end. Like you said, with social media and things and the way life is now, everything is just beginning or end. When you look on like anybody's life, they tell you about their vacation, or they post pictures of their vacation, or they post pictures of their wedding. They don't post pictures of the conversations they had prior to that wedding, or what they had to do to pay for that vacation. All that stuff is just like, hey, look, guys, I'm in Aruba, or hey, guys, look, we're married now, we're getting married. But all that, the hard work that you have to do to get there, it's never really talked about because it's difficult, and a lot of times it's not fun to talk about that stuff or share it to others, especially.
There's a lot of failure in that middle. So
yes,
people don't want to talk about that failure. So that's why we're here. Let's talk about it. I'll tell you what I did. Alex will tell you what he went through. Like, that's all of us. So,
well, and the beginning is the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whatever the beginning of whatever story it is you're telling, whatever action you did, whatever the case may be, the ending's irrelevant in a sense because it is what it is. I mean, the beginning, because the beginning's the past, right? So what started it's already happened, and you can't change the past. And I think what's so great about focusing on the middle is regardless of how you started, how you go about your middle dictates your outcome. So, no matter where you started, you can always control where you end if you put the work inside the middle. If you're vulnerable, if you go through these things and you share that and you're able to work through it, that's how you get to the end goal or the end, whatever it is.
And I think through these conversations, the dialogue that we have, and we've all experienced that. It seems so intense, like, oh, do I really want to tell this person this, or do I really want to open myself up about this? And I mean, never in my life have I ever been like, oh shit, I wish I wouldn't have said that. Like, there's always been a release in being honest and being open and, being forthright with somebody. And it never was as bad in reality as I had built it up to be.
No, it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, you have those conversations in your head where you're like, I want to say this to this person so they can help me. But then in your head, you play that conversation back, and what they say to you, and inevitably, it's not ever the case. What you think they're going to do or their it's really never that. Right. Usually it's far better, far more helpful.
Definitely.
It's healthier. You foster a lot better relationships, conversations, whatever it is you're trying to do, by putting those things out there that you probably, the average person would think that I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't tell them this about me. But when you put it out there, like you said, it's often well received because it's probably not the first time they heard it, or it's just not as shocking as you thought it would be, you know?
And I think that's really what being a Lion is about, being that leader, you know, being that person that takes that first step, because everybody's just kind of waiting on the edge of the water and putting their little pinky toe in there or whatever. And as a Lion, you got to jump in and then get that instantaneous, like, the water's great.
Yep.
You know, it's not as cold as you guys thought. And all of a sudden you have that leadership, other people come, you know, come in there with you.
Right.
It's that scary part is taking that step. And I think for all of us, anytime we have taken that step, it's never been nowhere near as bad as we thought it was going to be.
No.
You know, we always like, thank God I did that. And why did I stress so much about it? Why did I worry so much about it? You know, I think when you're open and honest with people, people are far less judgmental than when you're holding back.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times we think we're slick and we're fooling somebody and we're getting over on somebody, and they might not know per se that you're being disingenuous, but it's like that instinct in them feels like something's not right. And so they're kind of picking up on that.
Yeah.
And you're kind of getting that negative force against you. And instead of just being honest, being open with it, you know, I think people, and all four of us are very good examples of that. We've all had violent history. It's not something that, you know, we really have a problem with. And I think for any one of us, when somebody is open and vulnerable, we all kind of become puppy dogs over it.
Absolutely.
Whereas if somebody tries to lock horns, you know, we're going to go toe to toe with anybody.
Yeah.
It's that vulnerability, that openness that really kind of seems so much scarier than it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's through like that vulnerability, I became like an advocate for therapy. Because I remember when the first time that I actually did like some real therapy, like as an adult, I dreaded it before I even got there. Like driving there, I'm just like, what am I doing? This is not my style. Sitting in the waiting room, I'm like, oh, it's just and then I'm sitting in the waiting room. I'm not like an overly judgy person, but I'm looking at everybody in there.
She's
like,
got problems.
Yeah. I'm not like her. I don't belong here. Look at this guy. Yeah, I'm not. What
That
am
guy
I doing?
definitely needs help.
Yeah. So I'm going to waste this guy's time when he can be helping him. And then you go back there and it's nothing like what you expected. You pretty much, I mean, I was fortunate. I had a very good, open counselor, therapist. And we typically just had conversations. And it was that same thing where as I was saying things and being honest, telling those truths, I thought, I probably shouldn't say that. But I went on and said it. And he received it, you know, well. And we discussed it, and he even shared some of his experiences that were similar. And it just opened up the door to conversations and understanding of therapy. And then the fact that I was holding on to stuff that I could just let out. Mm-hmm. So now I wasn't weighed down by certain things because I let those things out to somebody and we discussed them, and I didn't have a burden of the fear of being judged. You know?
No, definitely.
It's a very free place to be.
It is, yeah.
You know, when you feel like you're in an environment where you could just share whatever,
yeah.
do whatever with whoever and not feel like you're going to suffer a consequence. I mean, a lot of times people think, so a perfect example, right? We all ride motorcycles. You know, I don't need to talk to nobody. You know, you never see a motorcycle parked outside of a therapist's office. Call him BS. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm calling BS.
I definitely rode my bike to the therapy office.
Yeah. And I'm calling BS because I don't think we realize how much we're our own worst enemy.
Yeah.
You know, you put something in your head, and then we do something as silly as lock it inside of our head and think we're going to work it out with ourselves. Well, you haven't been able to thus far. So what's going to change this time?
Right. What's
different about bottling it up this time compared to the last 100 times where it didn't work? Why is this one going to work?
Yeah.
It's not going to.
Well, I look at that like if you don't know how to do a certain equation and you keep asking yourself how to do that equation, like you don't know what you're doing. Why would I ask myself if I don't know how to do it?
Yeah,
like,
what's the square root of X?
Yeah.
100 times over again.
Yeah.
Just by saying it, you're not going to figure it out.
No.
You know?
What's the definition of insanity? You know, doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different
Yes.
result. Like same same concept, you know?
Yeah.
No, and I think as people, we find ourselves doing that a lot. And a big part of that is ego. A big part of
Yes.
that is fear driven. Nobody wants to say, man, I don't know what the hell I'm doing right now. You know, because there seems to be a certain vulnerability in that.
Yeah, it's
And again, I really think with looking at Daniel and Faith, it was like, you know, if he's coming out of a den of lions, okay, pretty tough. You're in a pretty good position in life. I don't know if you're going to have any more traumatizing experiences than that. And I think that's really what this is about, is mentally getting there, where you understand that through faith, through integrity, honesty, vulnerability, being open with people, that you find that strength where, you know, you're really comfortable in your own skin and being comfortable being you. And also understanding that it's not going to always be that way. I mean, there's all times where we felt great in life and rug got pulled out from underneath us. And, you know, there's other times where we felt invincible. You know, it changes. Life constantly changes. You know, I think faith is really about that structure, that foundation of having those building blocks of making it through those times. And the more experiences you have, stronger your faith gets. It goes from, you know, DEFCON 5 to a 2 or a 3, where it's tough, but it's not so scary and it's not so, you know, freaking you out.
Well, and I think another side of it with the story of Daniel is it's so powerful that it's a lion. Because when you think of a lion, you think the king of the jungle. You think it's the king of the animal kingdom. And the perception for Daniel walking into that is, I'm getting chewed up, I'm not coming out of this hole. And it's a lesson that we're being taught that, why don't you just be a lion? If you're so worried about stepping into a cage with them, just become one, you know? And it's easier said than done. Well, is it? You know, and what does that mean to be a lion? I mean, when I think of a lion, and I've never seen one in person except for through the glass at the zoo, but you know, the documentaries and things I've seen.
Close enough. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of lions laying around, you know, enough. I mean, documentaries. I mean, male lions are notorious for sleeping while the females go out and hunt. It's not because the male can't hunt. It's because a lion understands its power. It doesn't have to use it. It doesn't have to be a lion all of the time. And I think you learn that in that story. I mean, I think you see that side of it of, if you want to be a lion, you just need to you want to be a part of this pride. You just have to do what it takes. And that doesn't mean run 6 miles, do push-ups. It's not that kind of click. It's just be vulnerable.
Thank God.
Yeah, don't do cardio. Be vulnerable and be open, right? You know, I mean, you and I, the first time we got together with Lionz Den, I mean, I had a history with you guys. Obviously, started working with you 7 years ago. You know, you obviously came into the mix a couple years after that, and we've met, right? Yeah. But you know, we hit it off right first day one. You know, and I think that's because we were vulnerable to it. We'd realized that not only have we been through those same experiences, you know, it was, man, I want to hear what this guy has to say. You know, he's got some good stuff. There's stuff I picked up on night one where I was like, man, there's things Brad's saying that I could apply to myself. You know, you and I have definitely had those conversations before, and more times than we could count, you know?
Right.
So I think it's just being open to, if you're walking into the den, if you don't want to get eaten, become a lion.
Absolutely. I mean, and on that note, we made it first through our first channel, made it through our first podcast.
Did?
Yeah.
That's our little applause guy.
Nice.
It's special. Comes with the board. Again, please subscribe. Please like. Check out our Instagram, our Facebook, Lionz Den 146. And again, you don't feel comfortable putting something in the comments, you can definitely email us at lionsden146@gmail.com. And please, anything that anybody wants to hear, or anything you want us to talk about, chime in.
Yeah. It's all for you. You know, that's what we're here for.
But thank you guys. Great
Absolutely.
job.